everyone, my name is S Comic Maker, and if you read the title, you know it's about to get really strange up in here, because today we're going to be taking a look at the 5 weirdest comics that I own. This, of course, means that they aren't the weirdest ones that are out there, but just the ones that I could pull off of my shelf. What makes a comic weird is also subjective, so what is weird to me might not be as weird to you. But without further ado, let's get right into the first book. My Boyfriend is a Bear by Pamela Ribon and Kat Ferris. This book is a weird one. Imagine, if you will, a 28-year-old girl just trying to make it through her everyday life. She wants love like a lot of other people search for. But you see, she's dated a lot of guys. But her love life turns for the better when she meets a bear. That's right, you heard me. A freaking bear. He's sweet, he cooks, he's a natural handyman, and he also eats everything and breaks everything. But he gives Nora lots of love and cuddles, and really, that's all that she wants. Her family and some of her friends might not be as on board, but Nora has finally fallen way too deep to let this bear go. This story is kind of a mix between cutesy and adult, so be warned there is adult language and themes, but overall it's a pretty basic story. Kinda slice of life, but with a little bit more plot towards the end, dealing with the bear leaving for hibernation. It was a really fun read, and the art is very, very cute. I love that the cover looks kind of like a romance novel. If you like things that are more story oriented or have more action in them, this one might not be for you. But if you like romance or slice of life, I think My Boyfriend is a Bear is worth picking up and reading. Even if you have to get past the whole thing that she's like dating a bear and doing things with a bear that, I mean, I enjoy reading romance stories, but let me tell you, this one is probably the weirdest one. Next up, we have I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young. Gore galore. This one is not for the squeamish. A place like Fairyland sounds like it's supposed to be full of magic, adventure, and wonder. And after Gertrude is sucked into this world, she's told she will encounter all of that and more. All she has to do is find the key and she can get back home. She gets a sidekick named Larry and a map, and she's on her way, and, well, that was 27 years ago. So this once 6-year-old is now 33 years old and has been stuck in Fairyland all those years. Apparently throwing a 6-year-old into a magical world with only a sidekick and a map wasn't really a good idea, because little Gertrude has still been searching for that key. After years of being a little human hopped up on sugar and magic, the years have been getting to her and she desperately wants out. So much so that she will beat the fluff out of anyone or anything that gets in her way. This story is super bizarre and goes into so many directions that I didn't think it would go into, but it was such a fun ride. Imagine a 6-year-old with crazy curls and tattered clothes, drunk and swinging an axe. Scotty Young's art is also amazing for this story. The characters are super fun and expressive, and he does an amazing job bringing it all to life. It's interesting to note that he illustrated the Wizard of Oz comics as well, so maybe all the girl in another world on a quest stuff inspired him to take it into a completely different direction. But however he got into the story, I'm totally here for it. And this concept is just the base of the story. Every volume goes into another crazy adventure of Gertrude and her guide Larry trying to figure out how to survive Fairyland and all the horrors within. While there isn't really any cursing in this series, because you literally can't do that in Fairyland, the best you can get is a fluff you. There's also lots of gore and blood, so be wary if you decide to read this one. But while Fairyland isn't the scariest story I've read about a 6-year-old, it's definitely the weirdest one. The Way of the House Husband by Kosuke Ono. This book is hilarious. If you're a manga fan and spend any time online, you might have seen a couple of these pages shown on your Twitter feed or on other sites. As comedy manga goes, this one is absolutely gold. Often with comedy manga, there's jokes that don't land sometimes because they can be a play on words or rely a lot on slapstick, but with this manga, I was legitimately laughing out loud. This is the first manga I've included in a graphic novel or comic review video, and I want want to start incorporating more in the future, but even if you aren't a manga fan, I would really recommend this one. The story follows modern house husband Tatsu, who is a stay-at-home husband that tends to the needs of the house like cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, and even indulging on things like crafts or posting his bento box pictures online. There's no shame in taking pride in the care of your house, except for the fact that Tatsu is an ex-Yakuza member and a very serious one at that. He might have left that life behind, but his focus, honor, and strength has been put into making sure that he does his new job as a house husband with dignity and precision. Lunchboxes will be cute, coupons will be clipped, and his trust in the Roomba to reach every corner of the house will always be questioned. Imagine all the mundane household chores being done, but amplified to 100 with the most serious tone. That is how the house husband do, and makes for a hilarious premise that I absolutely loved. Amazingly, this is the artist and author's debut manga, and I'm just blown away by how good it is. It's so good, in fact, that it has a live action version that just aired in October of 2020 and an anime coming to Netflix at some point. If you ever get the opportunity to give this strange story a read, I highly recommend it. The Way of the House Husband is a weird manga that will definitely have you laughing. Cucumber Quest by Gigi DG. This one isn't quite as weird in the way that you would think because this book is absolutely gorgeous. If you don't know Cucumber Quest, it's a webcomic that was eventually published by First Second Comics. The story isn't and won't be completed unfortunately, but there are 4 beautiful books to read and the author has the rest of the script online as well if you ever want to finish the story. But anyway, back to the beauty of the series. The art in this book is an incredible lineless style that is so colorful. I remember when I first read this comic online, I absolutely fell in love with everything about it. The style, the colors, the character designs, the dialogue, it's a super fun read. But then where does this book get weird? Well, it actually gets super bizarre when it comes to the humor in this book. At first, this just seems like a typical story about adventure, but the way that the characters talk to each other is so funny. You'll know within the first chapter of sending Cucumber off into his quest just how weird this comic is going to be. The comic also gives the reader moments to pause and take in the jokes and gives the characters time to really react to the situations happening around them. There's some great scenes where the characters make hilarious faces and act super crazy. When I first read it online, I was laughing through the whole thing. But what gets the most weird is the author's way of just throwing the characters into these crazy scenarios. For example, when Cucumber's sister just straight up gives the enemy this final piece that's needed to summon the Nightmare Knight, just so that their adventure can get more interesting. It's moments like these and many more that will have you saying, "What the?" out loud, and that's why I just had to include it on my list of weird books. Manga Man by Larry Liga and Colleen Duran. Oh boy, I saved the weirdest one for last. Let's talk about Manga Man, the whole reason why I actually thought about making a list like this. This book alone is the whole reason why this video exists, and I want to find more strange books like this. I picked up this book at a secondhand bookstore for relatively cheap, and while the cover didn't exactly entice me that much, what pulled me in was the difference in art style. To be honest, when I opened it too, I wasn't too much of a fan of the art. This kind of style isn't something I would normally lean towards, but then I came across this page. Seeing this old shoujo manga style against the dark graphic style of the other characters made me at least interested enough to take it home. And this is probably one of the weirdest books I've ever read. The plot admittedly isn't that great and it's very short, and the main love interest wasn't the best either, but it is hands down one of the most bizarre stories I've ever sat through. I'll be getting into some of the spoilery story points for this last one, so a little warning before we get into the plot, but Manga Man is about Ryoko Kiyama, a boy that has been pulled into our world through a rip, and while this seems like it would follow any isekai story, there's an interesting aspect to Ryoko being there. His world is the biggest manga stereotype you will ever see. Schoolgirls, mechas, cherry blossoms, and school festivals are all the everyday where he comes from. And while yes, you do see that in school settings in manga, no, that's literally all of what his world is apparently. If you've ever read a manga, you will see many tropes parodied here, which you might either find funny or super annoying, but here's the thing. When Ryoko comes to our world, he looks exactly like he stepped out of the pages of a manga, to the point where people are insanely weirded out. Not only does he look completely different than anyone else, but anytime he expresses experiences and emotion the way that you would see in a manga, it actually happens in the real world. For example, when there's a surprising moment or an action-packed moment where the panel is filled with speed lines, those lines actually show up in the real world. And if Ryoko is thinking about someone and an image of him forms in his mind, the people around him can see it floating around in space just like it would be in a real manga. This makes for some very bizarre moments and leaves most of the real world hating Ryoko or being afraid of him. Except for one very oddly dressed girl named Marissa Montaigne, who is at first scared but eventually warms up to Ryoko and falls in love with him. There are already kaijus or monsters that are trying to get in through the same rip that Ryoko came through, but together Marissa and Ryoko find that the real world is also a comic and that they can move in between the panels and kind of like skip around their world. In doing this, they find that the kaijus are actually in between the panels of the comic book pages. While some of the character development and plot seems weird, the premise of this book is so strange that I actually kind of enjoyed it. This was mostly because I enjoyed seeing the manga scenarios that were brought into the real world that way. Not sure I would recommend this one to as many other people though. If you like manga, you might get a laugh out of the fact that there are a lot of typical manga bits that get brought to life here, or you might be really annoyed about the fact that this book seems to be making fun of manga in general. Definitely seems like the writer enjoys reading older manga, but most manga these days don't even follow a lot of these tropes, so it's kind of dated at this point. Anyway, as far as the weird books that I own, this one definitely takes the whole cake. I won't spoil the ending in case you ever want to read it, but be warned, it is probably one of the weirdest books ever, in a good and bad way. This was such a fun video to work on this week. As a lot of you guys know, I love reading comics, so it's always a joy to share some of the stuff that I've been reading with all of you. A lot of you suggested that I do another group of 5 graphic novels like I did for my summer graphic novel review instead of just reviewing one book, so I was very excited to work on this one. In fact, if you want to see more graphic novel reviews, I'll leave an iCard here with a playlist to all the books I've talked about so far, as well as the links to where you can get the books mentioned today in the description down below. Man, I wish I had the mind to create such weird and random stories. I mean, the weirdest thing I've probably created was Banana Man. Hey! I heard that! No, I promise I mean that in a good way. I'm glad I created you, Banana Man. That's what I thought. But that's it for me this week, guys. What are some of the weirdest comics, books, or movies you've seen? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much to my amazing patrons and banana members, as well as people like you who like, comment on, and share my videos. I appreciate you all stopping by, and I hope that we can draw or read together again soon. Stay weird, guys.